if it's fair, it isn't a trial. Welcome, my friend, to Defining Moments. This is Jennifer Packham. If you've ever had a defining moment that shattered you, leaving you to piece together meaning from chaos, these vlogs are for you. In them, I share my raw journal excerpts from my life-altering defining moments and the wisdom I've gained from them. I hope they bring you renewed possibilities, clarity, faith, and hope in your toughest moments. This is vlog episode 32. In a quote by Elder Maxwell, he said, "Sorrow enlarges the heart. Sometimes we feel so much hurt, pain, loss, or sorrow, we can wonder how we're still breathing. Sorrow stretches us and gives place for an expanded space for joy." Lehi says, "Adam fell that men might be, and men are that they might have joy." Ultimately, that is what God consecrates for our gain, that we might have a fullness of joy which will never end, never be diminished, but continue into eternity. But, again, Elder Maxwell also said, there are in the gospel warm and cuddly doctrines, and then there are some that are just outright wintry doctrines. One of them, frankly, is that we cannot approach real consecration without passing through appropriate clinical experiences because we don't achieve consecration in the abstract. Sometimes, therefore, the best people have the worst experiences because they are the most ready to learn. At this time in 2003, things were still extremely difficult. In my journal, during this time, I wrote things like, "Will my heart ever stop pounding and my hands ever stop shaking? Will my stomach stop hurting when I wake up in the morning too early and not let me rest?" On June 25th, 2003, I wrote, "I've realized my husband's problems have never gotten better. In fact, I believe they're getting worse. I believe I've chosen all these years to ignore it just enough to be happy. I cannot do that anymore. I am not happy. I need to be away from his reality, from him. Somehow I've got to find a way to be myself again and rejoin the world of reaching, working, trying to be better and happy instead of trying to survive emotionally every day. I'm everlastingly tired of the world the way he sees it. Perhaps in the next life everything will be worked out, but for now I cannot keep putting the broken vase back together every time he knocks it off the table, so to speak. This time I cannot see all the pieces. I cannot find them, and I find myself not even wanting to look for them. I feel like I'm at an everlasting red light in a procession of traffic lights, and something inside has just said, stop. You cannot go on any further. I used to take it one red light at a time and just work through it, putting the pieces back in place. But now my light isn't changing. Something has made me stop and think, enough is enough. I've gone through enough. I'm through with the cycle of abuse and strain and stress every day. And for what? Yes, someday we will both be made whole. I thoroughly believe that. But for now, unless I stop this from spiraling downward, we may not want each other in the next life. I am being eaten away emotionally and mentally. I feel so unstable at times around him. Sometimes I actually feel like it would be better, not better, but easier to just give up physically, to end all the madness and craziness of trying to understand, trying to spin a dozen plates and not let them fall, trying to keep everything at some feeling of normalcy. Well, I can't. The way he thinks confuses me, like I'm the one who knocked off the vase. I'm not. I don't want to talk to him and be confused and try to follow his mind in a conversation and come away feeling like I'm the bad guy. I've done all I can for as long as I can. I can do no more. The effects of the emotional abuse were getting worse simply because there was never an end. I really believe I could have endured had I known there would be a change for the better. I believed that when he first came home from the hospital. I will forever remember being told he could progress 10 years post-injury. It was enough to keep me going. Then there was the blessing given by Elder Maxwell. He said that my husband would come back and be a husband to me and a father to our baby and those to come. I just knew I could endure. I thought that was my challenge, my purpose, but I had finally reached my limit. Emotionally, I was breaking down more and more often, with painful pins and needles feelings all over my body, as if I had the flu for days, but I wasn't sick. My heart physically hurt, and I had to work so hard to remember even the smallest things. My stress level was through the roof because he had such odd sleeping habits, so I began sleeping in the basement. I hated knowingly upsetting him by doing this, but I wasn't sleeping well. It was quiet, cool, and dark, yet I would feel sick with nauseousness as I would get everyone ready to go to bed and make a nightly conscious decision to sleep downstairs. I kept saying, it's okay, over and over to myself. Sometimes I slept. I think I even had a dream once, which is something I mostly had stopped doing. But then my husband showed his disapproval by pacing the floor above me back and forth with a heavy heel until early in the morning and then watching a movie loudly. Physically, I would shake constantly. People at the grocery store would ask if I was okay when I would hand them my card or a check. I would always respond with a little laugh and just say, yeah, I just shake. So I learned how to hold my hands still, clasped together, or hold onto my knees so others wouldn't notice. I actually didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. I just thought it was normal for me. I thought maybe it was the side effect of antidepressants I had taken before, or something logical like that. But deep down somewhere, I knew I was dying a slow death. My husband's brain was retested at my request, but he showed no improvement from the original tests done more than 10 years previous. In my journal, I wrote, "How can I even describe what it is like to have loved someone? Surely to love them still, but see an entirely different look in those familiar eyes, to hear foreign words of oddness in the familiar voice. I've wished to believe nothing has changed over all these years, and yet everything between us has changed. I don't want to continue like this, always wondering, tired, confused. I live for the glimmers of normalcy I sometimes see. I'm hoping somehow they will stay when, time after time, they fade into memory. Now I'm starting to forget even the best memories. I don't relish the idea of being one of those statistics of people divorced from the result of a head injury. Yet, how can I last? The stress is simply getting too much." It was during this time I found pornography pictures he had printed off and hidden. My friend told me how to look up the history on our computer, and I found many pornographic sites he had visited. I'm sure most marriages that don't work out change over time. One or both partners slowly becomes someone else. But it's especially strange when your spouse wakes up that way from a coma, suddenly from something outside their control. To say it is hard is an understatement. After 13 years, I would have thought I could figure it out. I didn't want to be divorced, and I certainly did not take my covenants I had made in the temple with my husband and God lightly. One of my favorite scriptures since I was young is in 2 Timothy 1:7. "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." Oh, how I wish I had not let fear dictate my actions surrounding him. Ultimately, I was afraid of him and what he might do. He had made threatening statements in the past, and his general demeanor was almost continuously contentious, especially if I didn't choose my words carefully. I was afraid of divorce and that he would take the kids from me, and he would leave me penniless. He had already successfully removed me from any access to his money years before when I separated from him. In Philippians 4:13, it says, "I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me." I know I believed this scripture in theory, but I really didn't put in action or real faith that all things were possible with God. It is my conviction that God knows us and exactly what we need to learn. I believe we agreed to these tests and rejoiced in the prospect of learning things in those exact ways. It is a strange thing to look back on struggles. The how come and the whys of then seem lost within the lessons I now recognize. I suppose on the other side, we will have a perspective we do not now possess. Indeed, we cannot now possess because we are immersed in the test. Medication made it slightly easier to reason with my husband, so when he decided to stop taking it and was completely unreasonable, I told him if he didn't start taking his medication again, he needed to leave our family. Days later, when the deadline I gave him arrived, we actually had a somewhat productive conversation. It only happened that one time, but things actually improved for a few months between us. I wasn't ready to give up yet, especially if the Lord said, "Not yet." Ultimately, it probably had something to do with the vacation we had planned to Ireland. The trip was quite successful, even though he forgot his driver's license and I ended up driving, which was terrifying because I had to drive a stick shift. And even though I learned to drive with a stick, I hadn't driven one for over 9 years. I had to drive with the stick shift with my left hand on the left side of the extremely fast, narrow, rock-lined roads. I was overwhelmingly relieved to tears each day we arrived at our Airbnb safely. Ultimately, we had a pretty good time together. When we got back, I found out some distressing news about my dad, which added extreme stress to my family's life. I believe the short reprieve between my husband and I with this vacation was a blessing from God in anticipation of these events with my dad and others to come. I must take a moment to acknowledge God's hand in my life in all things, for He truly has been there as I look back and see the manifestations of His influence and the events He orchestrated on my behalf. I have heard God doesn't give us anything we can't handle, but in a talk by Elder Maxwell called "If Thou Endure It Well," he talks about a friend of his who passed through a severe trial. His friend told him simply, "If it's fair, it isn't a trial." I believe God allows us to be pushed to our limits and even beyond at times. So we will turn our hearts to Him and allow Him to help us. So we, with God, solve it together, and we have no doubt it was Him who helped us. Imagine a child who wants to tie his shoes. If the child is adamant he'd do it himself, unless he asks for help, it is very unlikely they will succeed. They must humble themselves, as children do so easily, and allow us to show them. Sometimes it takes a while for them to remember. We don't get upset, but we show them again and again until they get it. They know who taught them, even if they aren't grateful, and they're off on their way to new adventures. It's the same with God and us. God knows how to help us. He is the how, always. When we humble ourselves and come to Him with our trials, He can take them if we will give them to Him. But we must be willing to have Him take them and receive His blessings. Humility is strength. Corrections are compliments. That's what I always tell my ballet students when we have that first class of the year. I remind them, corrections are compliments. It's actually a great compliment to get a correction, and anyone who understands what it takes to achieve greatness at some level of skill knows that muscles or skill cannot be built and maintained without resistance. Also, consistent acceptance of corrections. And so it is with us and God. He allows us to be corrected and chastens us because He loves us, so we can be strong. I believe because my kids were given this trial of growing up with a father who is emotionally disabled, they have grown into better and stronger adults in so many wonderful ways. I'm so proud of them. In Helaman 15:3, it says, "And also hath He chastened them, yea, in the days of their iniquities hath He chastened them because He loveth them." And in D&C 95:1, it says, "Verily thus saith the Lord, unto you whom I love, and whom I love I also chasten, that their sins may be forgiven. For with the chastisement I prepare a way for their deliverance in all things out of temptation, and I have loved you." In Mosiah 23:21, it says, "Nevertheless the Lord seeth fit to chasten His people, yea, He trieth their patience and their faith." In D&C 136:31, it says, "My people must be tried in all things, that they may be prepared to receive the glory that I have for them, even the glory of Zion. And he that will not bear chastisement is not worthy of my kingdom." I love these scriptures. The reminder that God is with us always and that He wants us to succeed. The reminder that we can become stronger so that we will remember Him. It's my hope that we will always remember Him. Until next time, keep on keeping on with God.